In the eye of the storm, you remain in control. And in the middle of the war, you guard my soul. You alone are the anchor when my sails are torn. Your love surrounds me in the eye of the storm. When the solid ground is falling out from underneath my feet, between the black skies and my red eyes, I can barely see. When I realize I've been sold out by my friends and my family, I can feel the rain reminding me. In the eye of the storm, you remain in control. In the middle of the
there he is. Oh, hi. I'm Don Brandon. This is another video produced by Carter Christian Church. That song that you just heard doesn't look like we're going to get too many storms today. God's been awfully good to us. So why Annie Oakley? Why the Armory? Well, I have to confess to you, I don't like squirrels. I try to keep the bird feeder out there, and I want the birds to come to the bird feeder, not the squirrel. Yeah, hate those things. Now, honestly, this is just a simple BB gun, so don't go calling PETA on me. The squirrels look usually pretty annoyed when I shoot at them. I can't hurt them. I'm also not a very good shot. I have discovered something. I'm a lot more likely to hit them when I have my eyes open and when I'm looking at the target. The Apostle Paul has something to say about that today. Talking again about the wild Corinthians who were taking their eyes off the target, and understandably they were missing the target. Paul's got something that we all need to hear. Come join me.
How did you handle storms as a kid? Huh? Let me tell you, you would be an odd child if you enjoyed them. The way the wind whooshed, the way the thunder clapped, the way the lightning flashed. Most of us dove under the covers in our bed, or you sought refuge in your mother's arms. Whatever it took to survive the terrible tempest. We have gathered to now the 8th session of this study of the 4 different letters that the Apostle Paul wrote to the Corinthian church. He wrote more letters to these guys than anybody else. And you remember, when he first went there, he helped start the church in Corinth. But after he moved on, false teachers moved in, and they started causing all sorts of problems. And so Paul wrote a letter. We think a little part of it might be in the book of 2 Corinthians. We call this the previous letter. It did not work. So Paul writes a longer letter called the teaching letter. We know it as 1 Corinthians. It did not work. So Paul decides, I'm going to have to come visit these people again. And not only did it not work, it was a painful visit because it left wounds, a lot of heartache, a lot of embarrassment. And so now Paul has got his dander up. He's going to write another letter. It is the one that we call the severe letter. It is harsh. And folks, we've come now to the passage which is 2 Corinthians 12, 11, 21. And it don't get no stormier or severer than this. You need to get ready to dive under your sheets, to hang on to your mamas, because Paul has a full head of steam up. This is a no-holds-barred time for him to tell the wild Corinthians exactly what they've been doing wrong. I want to do something a little different today so that you get the full storming impact of this passage. On the screen is going to be the version that we often use here at Carter Christian Church, the New International Version. But while you're reading those words, I'm going to be reading from a different version. Dr. Eugene Peterson's The Message version. And as you are reading one set of words and hearing a different set of words, I just wonder if this might help us get the full hurricane squall impact of this passage. Are you ready? Here we go. Well, now I've done it. I've made a complete fool of myself by going on like this. But it's not all my fault. You put me up to it. You should have been doing this for me, sticking up for me and commending me instead of making me do it myself. You know from personal experience that even if I'm a nobody, a nothing, I wasn't second rate compared to those big shot apostles you're so taken with. All the signs that mark a true apostle were in evidence while I was with you through both good times and bad. Signs of portent, signs of wonder, signs of power. Did you get less of me or of God than any of the other churches? The only thing you got less was less responsibility for my upkeep. Well, I'm sorry. Forgive me for depriving you. Everything is in readiness now for this, my third visit to you. But don't worry about it. You won't have to put yourselves out. I'll be no more bother to you this time than I was on the other visits. I have no interest in what you have, only in you. Children shouldn't have to look out for their parents. Parents look out for their children. I'd be most happy to empty my pockets, even mortgage my life for your good. So how does it happen that the more I love you, the less I'm loved? So, why is it that I keep coming across these whiffs of gossip about how my self-support was a front behind which I worked an elaborate scam? Where's the evidence? Did I cheat or trick you through anyone I sent? I asked Titus to visit. I sent some brothers along. Did they swindle you out of anything? And haven't we always been just as above board, just as honest? I hope you don't think that all along we've been making our defense before you, the jury. You're not the jury. God is the jury. God revealed in Christ. And we make our case before Him. And we've gone to all the trouble of supporting ourselves so that we won't be in the way or get in the way of your growing up. I do admit that I have fears that when I come, you'll disappoint me, and I'll disappoint you. And in frustration with each other, everything will be falling to pieces, quarrels, jealousy, flaring tempers, taking sides, angry words, vicious rumors, swelled heads, general bedlam. I don't look forward to a second humiliation by God among you, compounded by hot tears over that crowd that keeps sinning over and over in the same old ways, who refuse to turn away from the pigsty of evil, sexual disorder, and indecency in which they wallow. Wow. Did you know that was in the Bible? No wonder they call it the severe letter. Clearly, the Apostle Paul is angry. And he has every right to be angry. If you remember right, he's jealous on God's behalf. He feels responsible for these Christians who have gone astray. He wants to help them. But they have gone off on their own illicit affair with these false super apostles who have gotten them distracted, who have gotten them to take their eyes off the target. And by the way, that is one definition of carnality. When you quit looking at the spiritual world and you start only being concerned about the physical world. That's what it is to be carnal. When we are all concerned about what science says, as opposed to what the God who made science says. When we want to know what does man think, as opposed to the maker of man, what does he think? Does any of this sound familiar to you? And we've got to be careful. Because just as the Corinthians had turned carnal, it's happening among us this very day. So Paul decides to share 4 telltale signs of crummy carnal Christians. Say that fast 5 times. And the Corinthians need to listen to these 4 lessons, and I think we do yet today. Here's the first one. Carnal Christians don't appreciate spiritual leaders. I have made a fool of myself, but you drove me to it. I ought to have been commended by you, for I am not in the least inferior to the super apostles, even though I am nothing. In our world today, if you take a stand for Jesus Christ, you're going to be ridiculed. You know that what I am telling you is true. Just watch what happens when a celebrity or a sports figure or that rare politician takes a stand against all the evil that is around. They are going to be vilified. But especially for anyone who has aligned themselves with the church, who has come out and said, I want to help lead the church, they are going to be reviled. It's just what happens. You watch. People don't honor the profession of the ministry or of church leaders anymore. Not like they honor other professions. And preachers and church people are ridiculed in the media, in the movies and TV. And heaven forbid that any of our promising youth would aspire to the highest calling, that is serving Christ and building his church. They are immediately squelched. Why would you want to throw your life away for something stupid like that? The Apostle Paul has thrown his life away many times, even faced death. And the Corinthians remember this, or should have. The Apostle Paul has given away all he once had, and once he had a lot. But he gave it away for Christ. Everybody knew this. Everybody knew he was brilliant in the faith, tireless in his efforts, and totally sold out for Christ. And yet, instead of commending him, the Corinthians are just sitting back and watching these false Judaizers rip into Paul and ridicule him at every turn, and they shouldn't have done that. They should have remembered that it was Paul who stood up for the truth. I persevered in demonstrating among you the marks of a true apostle. A true apostle. Not like these guys who say anything goes as long as we say it goes, and we think we ought to get back to the old Jewish law. Look how important we are. No, the Apostle Paul preached the true gospel, and he did it in season and out of season, and he did it whether it was convenient or whether it was going to put him in a dangerous situation. He was a true apostle, and because of that sacrifice, he had the right to be called their apostle. Not only did Paul stand for the truth, he showed them the power. Because he was being true, he said that God had justified him by the signs and the wonders and the miracles that took place. Do you remember when Paul was there for 18 whole months? It would have been amazing, the incredible things that must have taken place. I wish somebody had written them down. Paul says there were quite a few. Somebody did write one of them down. It was Dr. Luke in Acts 18. There was a time when Paul and several of the Christians looked like they were about had. They were about to be killed. And God rescued them with, of all people, a pagan Roman proconsul governor came to their rescue. Had the Corinthians forgotten how God showed up through the works of the Apostle Paul? Had they also forgotten how Paul had been so generous with them? How were you inferior to the other churches except that I was never a burden to you? Forgive me of that wrong. The super apostles were charging exorbitant wages for the privilege of leading the Corinthians down the false path. And Paul, tongue-in-cheek, is saying, man, I missed the boat. I should have held out for a higher salary instead of preaching the true gospel for free. A teenager put an invoice on the kitchen table addressed to Mom. Cleaning my room, $2. Taking out the trash, $2.50. Raking the leaves, $4. Feeding the dog, $1.50. Total, $10. Payable to me, Johnny. That afternoon, when Johnny came home from school, he found another invoice. Dear Johnny, fixing your dinner, no charge. Bandaging your knee, no charge. I can't read it. Washing your clothes, no charge. Praying for you every day, no charge. Total, no charge. I love you, Mom. Just like Mom did with that teenager, the Apostle Paul was shaming the Corinthians. He was reminding them and any of us who are ungrateful when it comes to the sacrifices that people make for the kingdom, and especially the church leaders make for Christ's church. We must not be like this. Now here comes the second telltale sign for crummy carnal Christians. Carnal Christians are suspicious of other people's motives. Did I exploit you through any of the men that I sent you? In verses 16 and 17, it seems like Paul is bringing up some rumors that must have been floated around, and probably from these false teachers, that said, yeah, we knew that Paul was here and he didn't get any salary, but we know that people were giving him a lot of things on the side. And do you remember that offering that we gave him that was supposedly go to the poor Christians in Jerusalem? I wonder where that money really went. No wonder Paul was angry When people make false charges like that, that's fighting words. You're going to stand up. And it's not just because they were dragging Paul through the mud, they were dragging Jesus and his work through the mud. So Paul pulls out his box of receipts, which is his life of service, of integrity. And Paul says, you remember those guys that I sent you? How'd they swindle you either? What did we do that justifies these groundless rumors? There's a lesson for us in that. Whatever you put your hand to, whatever you do, regarding the church and regarding anything, you live your life in such a way that is above reproach so that nobody can make those charges stick. But there's something else here. I believe that we as Christians need to be a trusting people. I know that doesn't sound very popular in this life. But rather than be suspicious at the drop of a hat, let us show love and show trust until that trust is proven mislaid. I think we'll get farther if we love people that way. There's a third telltale sign. Carnal Christians often have sour dispositions. For I'm afraid that when I come, I may not find you as I want you to be, and you may not find me as you want me to be. I fear that there may be discord and jealousy and fits of rage and selfish ambition and slander and gossip and arrogance and disorder. Paul is preparing to come see these Corinthians once again, and I think he has a very good right to be worried about it. Their discord and jealousy, fits of rage, and all these other things. Is Paul giving us a little glimpse at what happened in that earlier painful visit that took place, where things went so bad? We're Christians, and we need to focus on having positive attitudes and Christ-like dispositions, because let me tell you, sour Christians are no fun to be around, and sour churches are not going to last long, and they're never going to be effective. Here's the last one. Carnal Christians often continue in sin. I'm afraid that when I come again, my God will humble me before you, and I will be grieved over many who have sinned earlier and have not repented of the impurity, sexual sin, and debauchery in which they have indulged. Don't you know that what happens in Corinth doesn't stay in Corinth? Paul's heard the rumors. And these super apostles, they're really good at talking the talk. They're not very good about walking the walk. And they have been involved in sin. And when Paul says, clock's ticking, when I come, cards are going to be laid on the table. And we're going to identify exactly what's really been going on here. And it's not going to be a lot of fun. But Paul wasn't just talking about his pending visit. He was talking about the ultimate visitation that will come when Jesus finally is here. And he sees and acknowledges everything for exactly what it is. Clock was ticking for the Corinthians, and eventually time was up. The city of Corinth was destroyed several times over. And the church, you can only find it in the ruins of ancient Corinth. What about us? Clock's ticking on us. Are we going to be faithful? Are we going to last? Are we going to hit the target? Not if we take our eyes off of Jesus. We're going to miss every time. Just ask the Apostle Peter, who took his eye off Jesus and almost drowned, or these Corinthians, who no longer were looking at Jesus, now they're miles off course on a tempestuous sea. Today, more than ever before, the waves of evil have piled themselves high. We need to keep our eyes on Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith, now as much as ever. This week, will you do that? No matter what, will you keep watching Jesus? Will you recommit your life as his child, making him your Lord? And if he's not your Lord, would you make that decision this very day as we stand?
Our congregation rose together, and the song we had to sing was Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus. We need to keep our eyes focused on him. He's our target. He's the only way that life is going to work. I hope that you know him. I hope you'll do just that. Great day today, June the 6th, 2021, Carter Christian Church. Kendall Bear, your birthday today. Well, tomorrow, actually. 17 years old. We're so proud of you. Congratulations. Our church did something for the first time in a year and a quarter today. We shared the Lord's Supper by passing the emblems. We had, because of the health thing, had gone to disposable emblems, and everybody had just taken those, and that way we limited the amount of interaction. But the way things are happening in Tennessee right now, the vaccinations and the like, it seemed safe, so we actually passed the communion trays and we passed the offering plates, and it was a good thing. I think people really enjoyed that. If you're looking for a good church home, I hope you'll check out Carter Christian Church. And if there's ever a way that we can help you, please let us know. Until we meet again, unless you're a squirrel.